Well, there it is. We are officially live. Welcome back, Schlockaholics, to another episode of that classic Cutz, baby. Sorry for the awkward start there. StreamYard just decided not to give me a counter at first, so I had no idea if we were actually live or I was just pissing into the wind. Today, we are here to cover a very special film, one that I would say both of us probably have a fair amount of nostalgia for.
Oh, for sure.
Or at least, a long history with. We'll get to that as we get there. At the moment, we're just kind of killing a little bit of time, doing our opening ceremonies, if you will, kind of shooting the shit, waiting for hopefully a couple of people to show up that are running a bit late today. We might have an appearance by a wild Cody Tudor if he has the time to hop in here and say what's up to us. Hopefully our boy Septum Sin is dealing with their torrential flooding that they had over there.
Yeah.
Virginia. West Virginia, or wherever the hell he lives. Out there where Guar's from, Richmond,
Virginia. Yeah, because I visit. I mean, I've visited him and Jake before at their play at Septum Sin's place.
You have, you lucky SOB. Hopefully, one of these days we'll be able to line it where we can both visit at the same time. That would be pretty sick. Especially if we could do something like, do an episode of this at their place and then an episode for his show or whatever. I think that would be pretty cool.
Oh, for sure.
Go to the Guar bar. I mean, it's worth all of us hooking up just to go to the Guar bar.
Guar bar is
Did
excellent.
you guys go? Oh, you've been?
I've been to not with them, but I've been to the Guar bar a few times when my parents lived there.
Fuck yeah, dude. It's a dream of mine. It's definitely on my bucket list of things to do.
Yeah, if you go, get the Happy Meal.
My problem is I'm terrified of flying, to be honest. And I know once I get on one of those big planes, it's not going to be a big deal. But of course, I guess being from the Pacific Northwest, a rite of passage is one of your first flights is on like an 8-person plane. And that shit is terrifying, dude. I will never do it again unless it's like an issue of life or death, on a big plane, from what I understand, you hit the turbulence and it just feels a little bumpy for a second.
Yeah, it does.
But when you hit it in an 8-person plane, you feel every inch of that 30 feet that you drop in the air. It is fucked up, dude. And I was doing it right above where I live, too, as part of a science camp that I went to. So the whole time I'm thinking, like, I'm going to end up a fucking smear on the pavement, like, right down the street from my house. So it was pretty messed up. And then we went and saw Wild Wild West, the Will Smith movie, right afterwards.
Oh boy!
So just salt in the wound, to say the least.
I was gonna say this is about 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes, sir. I was just a wee lad going to a science camp that I forgot I signed up for. It was pretty whack. I was playing Nintendo 64 with my cousin. And my mom just showed up and she's like, "You got to go to science camp." The next 3 weeks of my life was fucking forfeit to something called Hydromania. It was pretty awesome overall. We went like on these fishing expeditions where we caught like stock trout that had transmitters in them. And we learned all about how they tag fish and all that stuff. We learned about conducting electricity and light bulbs. Like I can make a light bulb out of a beaker, some Play-Doh, a couple of paper clips, a piece of steel wool, and a match. I can make a light bulb that burns for like 20 minutes.
I was gonna say MacGyver that shit.
Yeah, fucking A, dude. And you never know when that could come in handy. I mean, you need 20 minutes of light that's not affected by the wind, and you got the right equipment. I can make it for you. But that's about the only useful thing I took out of that. The other things I took out of science camp was my first experience with having like a kid crush on an older girl that's never going to go anywhere. That's always a little bit frustrating. And then, of course, flying in an 8-seater plane, being scared out of my wits, and then fucking watching a really shitty Will Smith movie afterwards. I do got to admit, though, some part of me really likes Wild Wild West. I don't know what it is.
I'm not gonna lie. The movie itself was shit, but I completely ate it. But that theme song was my jam.
That was a banger, dude. Yeah, it was a banger. It was one of those last bangers Will Smith dropped too. Really,
Yeah,
a couple of years after that, he kind of crapped out, and then now he's just slapping people at the Oscars. So it's
yeah,
not the same vibe at all. Big Willie style. What happened to you, man?
right.
So you've been watching anything?
The Fresh Prince needs to. We need a return of the Fresh Prince.
Yeah, we do. I think his proximity to DJ Jazzy Jeff, like increasing in distance over the years, made him more and more of an asshole. You know.
Yeah.
I think Jeff was the thing keeping everything even keeled, and then when the Fresh Prince stopped being the Fresh Prince and hanging out with DJ Jazzy Jeff, everything went to shit slowly but surely.
Yeah.
What do you think of that I Am Legend?
Maybe around the time he got married to Jada Pinkett.
Well, yeah. I mean, she basically, Tupac died, so she settled for G-rated Tupac, and here we are. You know.
Although to be fair, I mean, yeah, G-rated Tupac, but in fairness to him, he is my Will Smith is one of my birthday twins.
Right on. And that's fine. I mean, I have I forget which album it is, but I have a Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff album in my car that I listen to.
I do have Nightmare on My Street on my Apple playlist.
I would have to look at what album it is because I just kind of bought it at a thrift store because it's Fresh Prince, you know. So, and it's got some good ones on there. And to his credit, Will used to rap about some not R-rated stuff.
No,
but PG-13 at least.
I would say getting in trouble with some guys in his neighborhood in West Philadelphia.
Yeah, or like, you know, kind of stringing a chick along that he thought was hot because he didn't want to like go all in on the girl he was dating or whatever. So minor infidelity, which in the grand scheme of things of 90s rap is still pretty G-rated, but I guess by today's standards it would be what they call questionable. It's Fresh Prince. Yeah, are you kidding me? Questionable. Listen to other 90s rap and then we'll talk. But then again, he slapped a dude in public at the Oscars, so maybe he is questionable nowadays. It took Will Smith what, 40 years to be gangster?
50. I would say about 50.
Almost. So you've been watching anything lately, man? You see anything outside of Scanners that wasn't homework or anything like that?
Quite a bit. Let's see this today. Well, funny enough, today is actually Brandon Cronenberg's birthday. His son. So earlier this afternoon I was watching his first feature film, Antiviral.
There you go. I've heard good things. I haven't seen it yet, but
yeah, I've seen all of his movies. I've seen Antiviral. I've seen Possessor. I've seen Infinity Pool.
Is Antiviral the one where they're like addicted to getting diseases from celebrities and shit like that?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, I heard it. I heard people talk. Dead and Lovely podcast, actually. If you want a really good horror podcast to listen to, I'm sure you've heard me sing their praises before, and I'm going to continue doing it. They're in our link tree in the description below. Definitely check out Dead and Lovely. But I think they're the guys who I heard talk about Antiviral, and it just sounds twisted as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, he is very much his father's son.
Yeah, you gotta believe that old David fucking has to be super proud of him.
Yeah.
What else did you see though? You were saying some other shit.
Oh, let's see. Besides that, I saw Wonka last night with Timothy Chalamet. I'll admit I'm not a huge Timothy Chalamet fan, but I heard enough so much good stuff about the movie that I decided to go check it out. It's very, I found it very enjoyable, very wholesome. It's very wholesome. Great cat. Overall.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Overall, very good cast. Enjoyable. So I'd recommend. So I recommend it, especially if you're a fan. I mean, I will say. I mean, yeah. Again, I'm not a fan of Timothy Chalamet, but I liked it better than Johnny Depp as Wonka.
That seems to be the consensus, is that it's like not as good as the original, but for a fun companion piece to the original, it's a neat bit of lore or whatever. I'm not super familiar with this Timothy Chalamet guy. What else is he in?
Let's see. He was in Little Women with Emma Watson and Florence Pugh. And just to tie it back to the kind of stuff we're talking about, his uncle is Robin Flender, who directed Leprechaun 2.
Oh, there you go. Fuck yeah. I would never watch Little Women, I don't think, so I'm safe from that. But
I'll admit, I went to go see that version in theaters when it came out, because I heard, got a lot of good reviews, and I like the cast, so I did go see it. I did actually thought it was actually excellent. Yeah. Anyway, what else was I seeing? Oh, I went and saw.
I trust you, dude. I don't know. Yeah. As I get older, I find, and you'd think it would be the reverse, and it kind of was when I first got in with the IMG crowd, where I was like trying to watch all these movies again that aren't like genre films that I enjoy. But I find the older I get and the less time that I have with like kids and relationships and work and everything like that, it's like I don't have time to watch something that's like I don't have a reasonably good expectation of it like delivering the sort of things that I want. Little Women I might watch with like my girlfriend or something,
right,
because isn't that kind of the whole vibe of it? Is it's like I'm only aware of it by name, if I'm honest. There's like other versions of it, right?
There's a ton of adaptations of it.
Yeah.
It's a children's book from the 19th century. It's based on a children's book from the 19th century.
Oh, like a young reader novel or something?
I believe so.
I might fuck with that then. There's a special quality to young reader novels. I think the simplicity in them, but like how deep of a story they can tell that I appreciate. So.
Right.
Maybe I'm not a total fucking schlock bag. I do enjoy some of that stuff if it's, if it's based on something that's wholesome and sincere enough.
Yeah. What else was? Oh yeah, Shiver. I saw over the weekend. This past weekend I saw Shivers in theaters. Early Cronenberg.
Right, because it just so happens you were telling me before we went live that there's one of the indie theaters where you live is doing a Cronenberg month that just happens to line up with this. And independently of knowing this about fucking Forrest, I chose to make this month a Cronenberg month because we were doing Scanners. So I swapped out Dead and Buried on the 24th with Videodrome. Spoiler alert, that's what we're covering next episode. So you saw Shivers. You said you're seeing The Brood this week, right?
This Saturday night, I'm going to go see The Brood.
Dude, one of the gnarliest horror films I've ever seen, still to this day. Slow burn in a lot of ways, I think. But, man, is it fucking cool. It's got that killer kid thing going on with that sort of body horror thing going on. When she licks that, you've seen it before, right?
Yes.
Dude, my mom gave me The Brood for like Christmas when I was 13 years old. No, my birthday, excuse me. She gave me The Brood. She gave me Evil Dead on DVD when it first came out. And then she bought me the Nightmare on Elm Street VHS box set where Freddy has like his hands all out, like, on the spines and everything.
Oh, the VHS.
I had them all.
I think that was the VHS set, wasn't it?
Yeah. She bought me that like brand new, I'm guessing backstock or whatever. And then she got me Evil Dead, like an anniversary edition or whatever when it came out on DVD. Mm-hmm. And then The Brood. This is back in the day. Again, I was 13. So this is like fucking 22 years ago or some crazy shit. So not awesome DVDs. These are the early days. The DVDs still kind of... And then obviously the Nightmare box set on VHS was still available. I had them all individually, which arguably is cooler, but the box set was dope too. Got to respect them having like a commercial for the DVD releases on there too, and later versions of it. So, or maybe it was the first one. I don't know.
I have that DVD. I actually do have that DVD box set in my collection.
Nice, man.
Much better than it was from what I understand, it's like it's not worth throwing out for a DVD set for a Blu-ray set.
Unless they're going to do a sick one like that one that Shout Factory did for the Friday the 13th
and Halloween.
Yeah, I'm fine with my budget. versions because there's not much they've done to clean it up or anything. They're basically just putting like rips of that shit on Blu-ray discs, from what I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was 13th birthday. It was, and she gave me those 3 things. Of course, I was hyped on Evil Dead because I knew all. I was already familiar with Evil Dead. Nightmare, of course, I was hyped on. The Brood, I definitely like put to the side and was just like, The Brood, and then I read the back and it was like about killer kids or something, so I just kind of put it to the side. But when I eventually watched it, man, did that movie fuck me up. The part where she licks the fetus will forever be seared into my brain. Just one of the worst things they've ever put in a horror movie, and I love them for it.
The things that divorce can make a guy like Cronenberg make. Divorce can make Cronenberg do some interesting do some pretty disturbing things.
Oh, is that why he did The Brood?
Yeah,
he got divorced.
Yeah, The Brood. Yeah, he basically wrote and directed The Brood as a way to like deal with it,
some like catharsis and
get some catharsis
closure on his
to like get a catharsis from a divorce.
That's pretty fucked up, dude. I mean, because the lady in The Brood is a pure dragon woman, like dysfunctional, toxic piece of shit, basically. And the whole gimmick of the movie is that she's giving birth to monster children. So I don't know what kind of relationship Cronenberg had with his ex-wife, but it's probably good that they're divorced. Holy shit. I mean, the exact scene I'm talking about when she licks that fetus like a dog that's trying to like break the sack around its puppy. It is the grossest thing. It still might be top 5 like grossest thing I've ever seen in a horror movie. You don't get that too often. Fetus licking, it's on the short list of things that we wish we've seen in more horror films, but just aren't in them. I'm honestly surprised that wasn't in something like Society,
or something more. I'm trying to think, like something a little more recent, like Antibirth.
I haven't seen that.
It was with
you guys are good.
It came out a few years ago. It was with, or like, I want to say it was like a few years or like a decade ago. It was with Natasha Lyonne.
I like her. So.
Yeah, but I mean, she wasn't. I mean, yeah, she plays a pregnant woman, but I mean, she doesn't look a fetus. But there is some pretty cool body melting.
I'm into that. That. See, that's the beauty of the dynamic of the show when my co-hosts are actually present. Is that I mean, you guys all know me. I'm mostly fucking with like retro movies all the time, like shit that's like 30 years old minimum. I do watch new stuff. I try to get in on some new horror on occasion, but I'm so busy with like shot on video stuff from the 80s and 90s and all the old classics from back then that I haven't seen, because let's be honest, it's fucking endless. One of my favorite things in the world is people that act like they've seen every horror movie, and it's like, motherfucker, you don't even know how many horror movies there are out there.
Like it's like the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg.
Dude, I've been doing this for literally 30 years, and I still feel like I'm at the tip of the iceberg, because you're always finding out about new shit. New shit's always getting re-released now that we have the ability to clean shit up and put it on disc. So there's literally an endless amount of horror movies. If you're just taking like the 60s through the 90s, that sort of 30-year period or whatever, it's literally endless. You could watch horror movies your entire life and never see every single one that came out in that period. And there's some we still don't even know about that were like shot on video regional releases that are just now finally getting like, known to the wider public. So I don't know. I mean, it's to try to ever act like you're like up to speed and have seen everything is silly to me. You should relish the fact that it's an endless pursuit, It's like listening to heavy metal or reading comic books or whatever. Like, you're never going to be done with it. And that's the point. Like, we get to pursue this. It's our lifelong pursuit. The pursuit of happiness or whatever. Will Smith brought it back around. So it looks like, these guys
a lot of full circles tonight.
Right. Please don't come smack us at any award ceremonies, Will Smith. We love you. We both have your albums, so I mean, come on. So it's looking like our dudes are definitely late or just not coming. I'm gonna check the messages. Did you ever get anything back from your friend that was thinking about joining?
He said he can't. Unfortunately, he said he can't make it. But for future reference, Josh, you are always welcome to come on.
Yes, anytime, man. We're very welcoming to anybody that wants to just talk about horror films, reminisce, shoot the shit, make some memories at the same time. So we're gonna get this going because we're not gonna wait all night for these guys. We gave them 20 minutes, so it's time to get to the show. Obviously, today we are here to talk about Scanners from the year of our Lord, 1981. It is a film by David Cronenberg. It stars several people that we will talk about after we run the trailer right now.
I would like to scan all of you in this room, one at a time. I must remind you that the scanning experience is usually a painful one, sometimes resulting in nosebleeds, earaches, stomach cramps, nausea, sometimes other symptoms of a similar nature. At this point, I'd like to call for volunteers. Fine. Just sit right here, please. Now, I'd like you to think of something specific.
Do I have to close my eyes?
It doesn't matter.
All right, yes, I have something.
The mind force. Scanners. Their thoughts can kill.
So Scanners was written and directed by David Cronenberg. It was produced by Claude Hurreau. It stars Jennifer O'Neill, Stephen Lack, Patrick McGugan, Lawrence Dale, Michael Ironside, and several others. It has cinematography by Mark Irwin. It's edited by Ronald Sanders with music by Howard Shore. Amazing music, I must add. It was distributed by New World Mutual in Canada and Mason internationally. It had a release date of January 14th, 1981 in the U.S., so we're only 4 days off from its U.S. release anniversary.
Yeah.
On January 16th of 1981 in Canada, which is weird because it's a Canadian horror film. But, you know, we got it 2 days before they did. It runs an absolutely astonishingly long 103 minutes. Way longer than this movie needed to go, but I think they do fill it up nicely with the atmosphere. We'll get to all that.
Yeah.
Apparently, it had a budget of 4.1 million Canadian, which is like, I don't know, $150 American these days. Nah, it's more like fucking, you know, 2/3 of that or something like that. I think half of it now, but 2/3 of it back then.
I think with the exchange rate, it would have been like $1 or $2 million US.
That's what I'm saying. Like back then, probably half of it. Nowadays, maybe even like 2/3 of it because the Canadian dollar is way down. But it made $14.2 million or $6.3 million at the time. You know, so adjusted for inflation, either way, the movie was profitable as fuck. And that's US dollars, not Canadian. So definitely Scanners was a milestone film for David Cronenberg. I think it's arguably, I mean, if we really wanted to get real about it, it's probably the movie that kind of broke him to a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
Because directly before this, he had done, you know, obviously Stereo, Crimes of the Future, and Shivers, as well as Rabid, Fast Company, and The Brood. But Scanners was really him coming, I think, finally into his own and ushering in a weird, wonderful world of 80s horror that he had a hand in pretty much throughout. You know, I did not turn my camera back on, and I was smiling gleefully during that entire thing. David Cronenberg fucking ruled the 80s, dude, when you think about it.
For sure.
He came right into it in 79 with The Brood. And then he had Scanners, Videodrome, The Dead Zone, The Fly, Dead Ringers, and then, you know, entered the 90s with Naked Lunch. So, you know, David Lynch was not fucking playing back in these days.
Cronenberg.
I mean, that's what I mean, Cronenberg. Yeah. Neither was Lynch, really, but that was a little bit later. Cronenberg was not fucking around, guys. And, you know, that track record speaks for it right there. I mean, just The Brood, Scanners, and Videodrome alone are worth, because, you know, The Brood's 79, but let's be honest, 79 is like that weird year where it's the 80s kind of, but not yet, and then it's not really the 70s either. It's like every year's like that, you know. 99 was like that for us growing up, where it's like, oh yeah, it's the last year of the 90s, but really it feels like the first year of the millennium.
Yeah, or like you watch movies from the early 90s and it still feels like it's the 80s.
Yeah, there's weird transitional shit between the decades that goes on, but absolutely ruled. I like The Dead Zone quite a bit as well. I'm sure we'll cover that on this show eventually when we get to some Stephen King fucking adaptations. I don't know, where's that fall in your list of Stephen King adaptations?
Dead Zone? I mean, for me, my favorite Stephen King adaptation is one that he doesn't even like, The Shining.
Love it, yeah.
I think as far as Stephen King adaptations, I would say The Shining, Creepshow. Oh God, what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say. Carrie? No. Okay, no. Shining, Creepshow, and Christine. Those are my top three. And then after that, I'd say Misery. I'd probably say Misery, Carrie, and then The Dead Zone.
Nice. I don't know. I like it a lot, dude. My top three would probably be Pet Sematary, It, and
Wait, which version of It?
Storm of the 90s one.
Okay.
The real version of It, dude. Not the Stranger
I don't know.
Things.
To me, both versions of It have the same problem. Like, they do a good job of adapting like the first half of the story, but then when it comes to like the second half and then like when they're adults, it just falls apart.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, something like it's, you know, is a good example of, on a larger scale, what's the same issue with adapting The Dark Tower. You know, they tried to adapt both of them before doing like these expansive straight to streaming or like HBO series was the norm. So they were trying to do it in a reasonable amount of time, and that just doesn't fucking work, you know. It's like this thick. It's like phone book thick, you know. And Dark Tower is a hugely expansive series. So to try to do a movie that captures that, or even a TV miniseries that captures that, is sort of a fool's errand, you know, because you're going to run into limitations on what you can portray, and you're going to have to condense some shit. I fully agree. There's oftentimes I've revisited that It miniseries from the 90s and just not even watched the adult part of it.
Yeah.
You know? Because I like the little kid part of it so much that I'm like just fine with leaving it there, you know. And that's already like a normal movie length when you watch the little kid part of it, because it's the whole first half of it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Storm of the Century is my third favorite. I think always will be. I have a soft spot for Langoliers and things like that.
Actually, okay. Because as long as we're including like his not like non-horror, like the non-horror works, then I'd probably put Stand By Me somewhere like I would definitely have to put Stand By Me on that list.
Oh, of course.
Stand by Me. Actually, I
Okay,
would say
Stand By Me, Shawshank, and Green Mile are like a top 3 in their own. You know,
yeah,
Stephen
and
King
the running
non-horror shit.
Man.
Yeah, I like it, but it wouldn't be in my top 3. But okay, to that end, Dead Zone has a special place in my heart as well, because back in the day when I fucking read the book for the first time, which I still have, that copy of it, I was reading books at the bar. It was like a whole books at the bar thing I was trying to start, and it didn't go anywhere with anyone else. But I finished a lot of Stephen King novels at the bar, dude.
I was gonna say, if you ever come to New York, you got to come to the, you got to go to this bar called, there's this bar in Lower Manhattan called the Library.
Fuck, that
where
sounds
you can
awesome already.
Where you can drink like $6 beers and read books. Read books, and they'll have some B movies playing on a projector in the back.
God, you're such a fucking lucky motherfucker for us with all this New York shit. Every time we talk to you, it's like movie screening here, movie screening. Now you got a bar that does exactly what I had to do manually myself back in the day. I used to go to the bar right over the like couple of streets over from my house all the time and read Stephen King novels. I finished probably 4 or 5 of them in there. I know I did Cujo at the bar. I know that I did Misery at the bar. I definitely did Dead Zone at the bar. And then I feel like the last one that I did at the bar was one of the Dark Tower ones. But Dead Zone specifically, I drank nothing but margaritas while reading the Dead Zone the entire time, because I was on a big margarita kick, and it was like summertime. So I would take Dead Zone out onto their patio and just drink margaritas. And after the first couple of visits, the ladies just knew to like bring me the margaritas out on the porch, and I would keep paying for them. You know, and then that night, because I already had a VHS copy of the Dead Zone, which I also still have, like waiting at home. As soon as I finished the book at the bar, I walked to my house, like 4 or 5 margaritas deep, and watched the movie with Christopher Walken and everything. And it was fucking awesome, dude. Like, it was one of the best nights of my life as a horror fan, maybe. So while it's not my favorite, the Dead Zone will always be up there. But that's where we're at right now. You know,
agreed.
The double, nice. The double feature that we're covering is basically Cronenberg's output between The Brood and the Dead Zone. So the next 2 weeks, all Cronenberg, baby. And I'm pretty sure Forrest's going to be here for both of them.
Oh, for sure.
So Scanners, what's your history with Scanners? When did you first see it for the first time? All that.
Okay, so actually, the first time I became familiar with, so I initially knew Scanners through. I would see GIFs of the head explosion, like I would go on like message boards or social media websites, and I would always see GIFs of the head explosion. I was like, "Where the hell? What is that from?" And then, but then there was a period of time where I was just getting deep into Cronenberg. There was a period of time either when I was in high school and college, where I was getting deep into Cronenberg. I remember looking at my local Hollywood video for Scanners, which they did not have, and which they unfortunately did not have. They had so I had to go to FYE and find a secondhand copy for a few. Bought a secondhand copy of Scanners for a few bucks. Right. That's how I first saw it. Was just I went in blind, had never seen it, but I knew the head explosion, and just bought it because I had no other way of and just bought it because I had no other way of watching. I had no other way of seeing it.
Hey man, I mean, at least you were able to go out there and grab yourself a copy.
Yeah, although eventually I think about it, just a few years ago, I did about a year or two ago, I did get rid of that DVD and get an upgraded to Criterion. Yeah.
That's the way to go, baby. I still need to get that Criterion, and I'm gonna overpay for it now for sure, but I need it because I fucking love Scanners.
Yes.
So my exposure to Scanners, little bit different, dude. So pretty much I found out about this movie when I was a freshman in high school. And up to that point, I was a lifelong horror fan. You know, I'd been devouring this shit since I was 6 years old, renting everything at the fucking video store. But as you well know, especially with mom and pop's video stores, sometimes horror shit would be buried in the science fiction section.
Yeah.
And I definitely rented science fiction stuff. I've always been a lifelong sci-fi fan as well, but like less, you know, for me, it goes like horror, fantasy, and then sci-fi. Even though a lot of the sci-fi stuff I love way more than I love any of the horror and fantasy stuff.
Actually, for me, I would say for me, it's horror, then sci-fi, then cheesy 80s action movies, and then fantasy.
I think that's the way it is for most people. You know, I would say even cheesy 80s action falls somewhere just under sci-fi for me. You know, like maybe I'm a traditionalist, like horror, fantasy, sci-fi, and then, you know, action. And yeah, all of it's amazing. We all know that. But as a kid, like, you know, I was really into Conan the Barbarian because of my uncle. I guess that's really what like made fantasy second for me. And then by extension, that turned me on to all the Robert E. Howard stuff, the Lord of the Rings stuff, long before there was movies for it and everything like that. I mean, like I think I got the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Yeah, I mean, I was like, I got the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit like book in audiobook form over a couple of different Christmases when I was like 8. You know, there was no movies of it back then other than the Ralph Bakshi movie and the Rankin and Bass shit. Both great, obviously. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, Scanners just somehow slipped under my radar. All right. So freshman year of high school, which just so happened to be the same year that our video store liquidated their VHS stock, a friend of mine came over, my buddy Keegan, who has been mentioned for years on every YouTube channel that I've ever done. One of these days, I got to track him down again and get him in for an interview, because we watched so many fucking like weird, crazy horror movies together back in the day. And he was one of those kids that like he had HBO. Well, I didn't growing up. Like we weren't poor, but we weren't like cable rich or anything like that. So I didn't have that shit. Like I turned my drunk stepdad's beer cans in to rent movies. That was my whole thing for years growing up. Literally right up until freshman year of high school, when I got my first job and met Keegan. And Keegan turned me on to, you know, Akira Kurosawa films, and by extension, Lone Wolf and Cub. He turned me on to all of the crazy later Godzilla films that I really didn't know much about at that point. I knew they kept making Godzilla movies after I watched them as a kid, but I had no idea that they went to the lengths that they did. And he also turned me on to Italian horror. Like if it wasn't for him, it would have taken me years to finally stumble on it, because I was just watching like whatever slasher movies and American horror films were out, you know. No clue who the fuck Dario Argento was, even though I'd seen his name like on, you know, various Dawn of the Dead stuff over the years. So I was just starting to get into that. So it's like the confluence of him showing me this shit, and then this website called eSplatter that existed back then that really turned me on to like underground horror, video nasties, Euro fucking exploitation shit, all that sort of sleazy stuff that was out there beyond the video store. So Scanners was one of those first movies. He brought this over to my house, didn't tell me anything about it, and just showed it to me. And as soon as we got to that fucking head explosion, I knew that I was seeing something that was not the normal shit that I was watching at the time. You know, that head explosion, along with, see, I was one of those kids for years, had not seen anything other than Night of the Living Dead, you know, so I didn't see Dawn of the Dead till high school, because I've never been huge into zombies, you know. So Night of the Living Dead, it was just kind of like, whatever. I liked Return of the Living Dead a lot. I saw that way before I ever saw Dawn of the Dead, you know. Plus the Dawn of the Dead covers aren't that great, so it just never stuck out to me at the video store, and I wasn't renting zombie stuff anyways, you know. So it wasn't until that same year, actually, freshman year of high school, that I saw Dawn of the Dead, So I was getting into all these gorier horror films, but Scanners was among the first, actually. My whole
Awesome
Scanners
t-shirt, by the way.
trilogy. We'll pull this out right here.
By the way, actually, first to ask. So, what was your first exposure to Cronenberg? Because mine, or your earliest, because mine was, I saw The Fly on TV with my dad when I was maybe 8 years old.
Good point, dude. Because definitely I got The Brood before I ever saw these. So I saw The Brood for sure before Scanners. I want to say maybe The Fly, actually. That might have been mine as well. I think dudes that are our age, The Fly probably is the most common one because it was widespread successful.
I would say it was up to that point. It was Cronenberg's most mainstream and most commercially successful movie.
Right. And, my parents, like, they showed it to us strictly. I'll never forget when we watched The Fly, too, because I think we'd watched Earth Girls Are Easy not that long beforehand.
Yeah.
And something else, like some other Gina Davis movie. And my mom's always been a big Gina Davis fan. So, dude, The Fly was not what they were expecting.
Why were they thinking it was going to be more like the original, or?
I think they thought it was going to be more like the original. Yeah, because my mom's an old school horror fan. Again, she gifted me The Brood.
Yeah,
but she doesn't exactly like. She's a horror fan in that she likes watching the movies. She's not up to date on who's doing them or anything like that. Like, that's totally a foreign concept to her. Like, oh, there's directors that do these, to her, they're just movies. But yeah, the Fly fucked our whole family up. So I think The Fly was the first one, and then The Brood, and then obviously Scanners. And I still have my whole VHS trilogy right here that I snagged from that video store when they liquidated their shit.
I have not seen I have never seen any of the sequels.
They're not great.
I imagine.
But they're worth seeing, dude. And then there's also Scanner Cop and everything as well. But this is one of my most prized possessions right here is my Scanners trilogy. I mean, I love these movies. Firestarter, in my opinion, is a de facto Scanners,
cousin.
Something, whatever you want to put it in there in the series, you could fit it.
It's like a distant cousin.
Yeah. I don't know. And I think, it also speaks to why I probably liked Friday the 13th Part 7 so much when I was a kid, Like, there's something about, like, a psychic or a telepathic person that's kind of scary or weird or interesting, Exactly, Carrie. I wasn't a huge Carrie fan as a kid. I do like it now. I like John Travolta in there. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's there's something about a good telepath movie that just gets my blood going, and obviously it works with still today with like Stranger Things and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Or there was that movie, was it called Freaks? I think, where the guy, did you see that one?
Like Todd Browning, like the Todd Browning Freaks, or
no, it's called. I think it's just called Freaks, and it's like from like 2016 or something like that.
No, I don't think I saw that.
This guy that's like raising this little girl that has like telepathic, crazy Firestarter type powers, and he's trying to keep her away from this government agency that's like rounding up all the superheroes. But it plays more like a post-apocalyptic, like dystopian future horror sci-fi thing at first, and then it turns out like, oh, there's all types of supers or whatever. This guy's just been basically, through his fatherly love, trying to prevent her from being abused by these people, has raised a villain, because he made her all paranoid and like hating of these people that are coming to take her away. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it. My kid made me watch it, but it's a cool genre,
Yeah,
I'm glad that there's like ones like these from the 80s that stand in the 80s and the 90s that stand the test of time, in my opinion, for something that makes the genre look pretty cool. And then there's definitely a lot of stuff that makes it look pretty lame. Stranger Things, it has simultaneously been examples of both. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I don't know. My first exposure to Scanners blew my mind, literally. Is it a film that you've watched much over the years? That's the follow-up question to the first impressions.
I'd say, yeah, at least maybe once a year or every other year.
Scanners, yeah, is definitely like an every other year, every few years kind of a thing for me because it's so fucking long.
Yeah.
That's definitely a problem of the film, is that it's like an hour and 44 minutes long for no reason other than that they had film to burn, I guess. I don't know. I mean, they needed to make it long back then.
Yeah, and I do feel like of all the, I mean, I think it's a great movie, but I do feel like it is slower than Cronenberg's other movies from around that time.
You feel like it's slower than them? Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, because you're about to watch us summarize the movie in like 45 minutes right now. It's not that complicated. And the movie doesn't really present itself as complicated. It has this slow burn atmospheric vibe to it that I do appreciate. It's just I don't always have an hour and 45 minutes to watch fucking Scanners.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a half an hour longer than it needs to be. And that affects its placement in marathons and stuff. Arguably, I would say some of these sequels are better placed in those marathons just because they're not fucking overstaying their welcome. I fall asleep during Scanners a lot.
Yeah, same here.
And it's not because the movie's bad. It's just because it has this like sort of weirdly comforting, hypnotic like tone to the whole thing that I'm sure is intentional. The whole movie's supposed to feel like you're waiting on an escalator at the mall while weird shit happens around you, I guess. And maybe you're on hallucinogenics. And it works, you know. It's not something that's conducive to like being hyped afterwards. Usually if I don't fall asleep while watching Scanners, I fall asleep immediately afterwards. And that's not just us riffing on the whole, you know, long run time of it. The movie generally does have like this soothing tone to it.
Yeah.
That makes it easy to fall asleep to, you know. Part of that is the weird opening sequence in Scanners. See, now we're going to start picking this shit apart. Where there's like almost no dialogue for the first few minutes of the movie, right? Like it's like you don't really get any character dialogue for maybe the first almost 10 minutes of Scanners. I don't know if that clip is playing or not. Was there a clip playing for you, Forrest?
No.
I guess StreamYard's crapping out on us. Come on now. All right, I'm going to come back out and come back in. You entertain the people for a moment.
Okay. All right, now I see it.
You got me, bud? You hear me?
Yes.
Cool. The clip didn't happen to play while I was gone, did it?
Oh, I saw the clip. No sound though.
Oh, yeah, the sound wasn't supposed to be there
Okay.
because ideally we would have been talking over it. But yeah, basically he's fucking, he's lapped up for doing nothing wrong but eating like a hot dog at the mall and smoking a cigarette. And some actual Karen is talking about how disgusting he is, and he gets taken away just because he's a scanner, What are your thoughts on this whole introductory sequence to scanners? Because again, I think it's unique in that it's almost like soundless, even though there's a ton of sound going, and it creates this awkward feeling of being like just dropped into the world, but then you surprisingly quickly kind of latch onto the gimmick of it,
Right.
Like even when I saw it as a kid at 15, when my buddy just showed it to me blind, I was like, okay, so they're like psychics or whatever, they're telepaths. And there's clearly people that like hunt them. Like it's just made clear without any dialogue at all, no exposition. You just see this homeless guy wander into a mall, start snacking on some food, and then all of a sudden,
woman have a seizure.
Yeah, and then he gets man-napped.
I would say making judgmental old ladies have seizures.
What do you think about that whole part where he's like running away from him and he does that move where he jumps over the side of the escalator and like grabs onto the outside of it and rides it up? Like, do you remember when that was an internet trend a couple of years ago?
I don't remember that being an internet trend. That's a very basic but very it's a basic but very fun stunt.
Dude, yeah, it's been going on forever, probably since way before the internet. But a few years ago, it had a rise again on the internet where you would see people riding the escalator by just like holding that thing,
angling onto the rail.
I like to think in my mind, down the line, it owes some credit to scanners, because this was 1981. Okay, escalators weren't new. But they certainly weren't technology people trusted enough to be taking parkour dives off the side of it. That dude cross-bodied onto the other escalator and rode it up like on the outside, which was pretty extreme. And he did it for real in a real mall. He could have got wrecked if he fucking missed that, which I suspect is why instead of riding it with both legs dangling, he had that one leg that was like clinging to the side. If you watch it in the shot, absolutely love it. Cut it out of there for time and to hopefully avoid the copyright scrubbing. But pretty much right after that, our dude, which it turns out his name is Cameron, has been captured and taken to this place by these people that are of the company Consec. This lead doctor, what's his name? Do you remember, Forrest?
Dr. Ruth.
Ruth, yeah. Baby Ruth?
No, I was thinking of I was thinking of that little German lady who always talks about sex.
Well, there you go. Dr. Ruth pretty much is a guy that, gathers these scanners that they catch and tries to indoctrinate them into working for Consec against the supposed scanner underground that exists. There's 236 known scanners in the world, 237 if we include Cameron. And pretty much right out of the gate, Dr. Ruth is positioning himself as his best friend and the dude that's going to help him learn how to use his scanner powers and sort of, find his place in the world. What do you think about Dr. Ruth in general, Forrest?
Well, I think about Dr. Ruth. I don't know. He seems like a very, to me watching it, he seemed like a very, very suspicious character. A very ambiguous, suspicious character. You didn't know if you could really trust him. Like not a character if I sure if I could trust him. Did he really have their interests, or he's just trying to exploit them for his bosses? I can't say.
Right. And honestly, I think that's the same way I felt about him the first time I watched this. obviously, in hindsight, we know he's a very genteel, sweet old man that has nothing but Cameron's best interests at heart, and he's legitimately the only dude in the movie that's just trying to do the right thing. But when you first watch it, it's kind of it is ambiguous at first, and he has this way of talking that makes him seem like a villainous character without doing anything particularly villainous. We see him, kind of bring Cameron in there and strap him down and make him deal with some hardship for a minute. But then we also see him introduce the drug ephemeral to him in a way that, can help him stop dealing with that onslaught of other people's thoughts. It also, unfortunately, makes him a junkie for this drug, which... When you look at this, you can see Cronenberg playing around with themes that he would take to much further extremes later in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But with Scanners, he's like sort of beta testing a bunch of it, and that's pretty cool in its own right. But yeah, I mean, he pretty much introduces Cameron to the whole thing. Pretty much right after that, we're introduced to the idea that, because up to this point, the only scanner we've seen is Cameron, correct?
Right.
Like, we haven't seen any other evidence of other people having this. There's been really no dialogue other than Dr. Ruth telling him, "You're a scanner." He doesn't even tell them there's a bunch of others. He just tells them that he's one, which presupposes that there's other ones. But not as many as we later find out. The very next scene, goes to the famous head explosion scene that we're all very aware of. I mean, this is, the main thing that stuck with all of us from this film over the years. And this is essentially a demonstration of the only other known scanner trying to show people his powers, and this was them making it public. This was Concept taking it to the public and telling them, these people exist.
Yeah.
We're gonna, be working with these people. We're gonna be, doing this kind of shit with them and experimenting and all that. And it just goes horribly wrong right out of the gate. Honestly, we've talked about it briefly, but what is your thoughts on this scene, man? I'm sure we both have several.
It's iconic. It's so disturbing. It's shocking. It's shocking. It's gross. If you're someone like me who's kind of got some interest in special effects, it's pretty interesting to see how it was done.
It wasn't Dick Smith a consultant on this?
Yes. Apparently it was okay. So the head, from reading from Wikipedia, the iconic head explosion scene was a product of trial and error, eventually using a plaster skull and a gelatin exterior packed with latex scraps and wax and just bits and bobs.
Dog food.
Yep, dog food. And then they just blew it up, and then they just fired a shotgun at it to blow it up.
There you go. That's all you need to do. It seems like there was some talented special effects people at work on this film, but Dick Smith basically did the horror equivalent of your dad yelling at you to hold the flashlight right while working on a car.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he did.
Yeah. Although one thing that I've noticed on rewatch is it's weird. Like, it's a very, because Revok makes the guy's head explode. Like, there's blood and brains flying everywhere. But when they cut back to the room at large, like, it's, I don't know, you can't it seems like a very clean death. Like, there's no blood. Like, Revok himself is completely clean. You don't see the body.
Well, I like how you keep calling him Revok like he's a brand of shoes. Revok, as the dude said. But let's run it again. It's pretty great, the whole thing. It is a fairly clean death, but I do like Michael Ironside's reaction to it, like, oh shit, like he didn't even expect his head to fully explode, And I think that's a great touch. This scene definitely, I mean, it mortified me the first time I saw it, to be honest. And I thought I'd seen enough to be like, I was 15, you know, I'd been watching slasher movies for years, and there's some gore in those, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like Maniac had a head explosion and everything. But Scanners, this one is the head explosion. You know, they did that shit buttery.
Oh, for sure.
To the point where it almost looks too real, you know. Like, it still sort of makes me uncomfortable when I watch the Scanners head explosion. And I love seeing people's reaction to it when they've never seen it. It's the best. But yeah, that definitely left an impact on me. Pretty much right after that, I think the movie sort of moves into them, you know, trying to capture Revok, and you get a real full display of his powers for the first time. With Cameron, it was made very clear that, like, there's these scanners, they can do things with their mind, yada, yada. But this whole sequence with Revok, where he explodes the guy's head and then goes into this absolute murder spree with all the Consec employees and everything, it really showcases the fact that this dude is a proper fucking supervillain.
Well, yes.
You know, he's not like just some little bitch boy that they scooped up off the streets eating a hot dog in a food court, you know. This guy knows what he's doing, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, you know. What were your first impressions of Revok as a villain when you watched this movie for the first time?
I'm plenty familiar with Michael Ironside as a villain from other movies.
He has been one in several.
Yep. Although a lot of that stuff was like later were later roles. So yeah, he just fits. So, but I think just having seen Ironside play in villainous roles prior, he fits this role like a glove.
Yeah. And it's pretty interesting because to me, Scanners is one of Michael Ironside's defining roles.
Oh,
but
for sure.
In reality, he's in the movie very little. And he says even less, you know. He has like 2 cool monologues in the movie. And then the rest of it is just him physically acting.
Yeah.
And being shot with a camera. You know, but he does it so well. It's more of a testament to his talent than even later shit that he did once he was a legend, you know. Because it's just brilliantly done. You know, they really do save the spice of this villain for the finale of the movie.
For sure.
You get a secondary villain in that Consec guy. I forget his name at the moment. I'll have to look here. Keller. That guy is like just basically the Consec dude that's working for Revok. So he's pretty much like the corporate bitch boy and just the de facto like mid boss of the movie. And Cameron absolutely smokes his ass by hacking the computer with his brain, which we'll talk about later. I don't know. What do you think of the build-up and them showcasing these characters next to each other? Like, do you think it works effectively to create the sort of superhero vibe that Scanners is obviously going for?
Kind of. I think it definitely established it. I mean, we definitely know kind of who's just trying, like Vale is just trying to survive. He just wants to go about his life. Whereas Revok just wants he's kind of just been pushed over the edge. He's been pretty much been pushed over the edge at this point because he had been institutionalized prior.
Institutionalized, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I have a hard time taking Cameron seriously, especially later on. He's a bit of, I guess, what they would call nowadays like a Mary Sue, where he's just all of a sudden powerful, you know, just because. Whereas Revok, you get an actual backstory about why he's like so insane and what his motives kind of are. Like, he clearly wants to suck up all this scanner power for himself and shut out every other voice that could possibly get into his head, you know. And then obviously it's also became profitable to create new scanners as well that they can control and manage. So anybody that doesn't join them is murdered by them. That's pretty much the plot of the movie. And Revik supposedly runs this scanner underground, but it really turns out that this other lady runs the actual scanners, like underground resistance fighters, and that they're resisting Consec and Revik
Rogue scanners,
because that's the sensible thing to do. One thing that's shocking is that, you know, throughout the movie, and I think this is intentional on David Cronenberg's part, Consec is kind of positioned as like the good guys in the movie until you realize, and they're just very flippantly the whole time talking about creating chemical weapons and the fact that they want to use these scanners as weapons.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen enough horror and science fiction movies to know that any corporation is going to be the bad guy. Wayland Yutani, Umbrella, Bartok Industries, and The Fly.
Right, but I think
Fly too, I should say.
In scanners, I think they do a better job of painting them as the good guys at first, where it's like it's giving this guy a way off the streets, a purpose for his life, kind of a thing. They're going to stop this evil guy Revik that is wreaking havoc on them, you know. But at the end of the day, it's still like they're trying to enslave the scanners too and like sell them as a commodity. And then it turns out Revik's just working with those people anyways. So it's all sort of been like a roundabout sham the whole time, you know. Because Revik was secretly, I mean, because basically Keller is the inside agent in the company that's helping Revik do his shit. To, I guess, hopefully take over the company once they've came up with this way to create scanners. Because if you remember earlier in the movie when Dr. Ruth is having that meeting with Keller, and Keller's like being a huge dick about the fact that, oh, well, you don't really even have any scanners to work with. You have one scanner, haha, you know, like he's kind of acting like it's not even worth pursuing. And then it turns out he's working with Revik to essentially create more scanners, you know. So pretty cool. I guess you got like the corporate espionage element of the movie as well, where there's that type of shit going on. Pretty much after that, you know, we have them trying to train Cameron up so that he can eventually face off with Revik. One of the things that they do is they put him against a yogi master, and he's able to just go absolutely insane on this old feller's heart rate, which is just crazy, you know. It almost sort of sets Cameron up as a villain too. The first time you watch this movie, you're like, is this guy bad too? Like, is that going to be the whole double twist at the end? Is that he's also a dick? But it turns out he was just proving that he could take him to the brink of death and then bring him back. Like, he was just flexing a little bit. What do you think of this whole scene, man? I feel like there could have been more of a training montage with him, where it showed him do other stuff. This is kind of one of those things that makes him feel like a bit of a Mary Sue, where they just do this one thing and then they're like, all right, in the very next scene, you're wearing a suit that we've equipped you with, like a James Bond suit, and you're at an art gallery faking that you're like, how the fuck is he already that skilled after being like a homeless derelict eating hot dogs in a fucking food mall? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know. And they portray him like he was like out of his mind before they found him, you know. So now he's all of a sudden suave enough to go into like a high-end art dealer's complex and, you know, basically scan some dude and get the information about where this other guy lives that might know where Revik lives. As much as I love the artwork and everything of this scene, it's a bit cornball because it just doesn't make sense based on what we've seen so far. But again, that just speaks to Cameron being a Mary Sue. Am I wrong?
No, not really. I mean, this is a guy who just he just barely found out that he had these. Who was I don't know? He was. I mean, when we first started, he was barely even aware that of his abilities.
Right. And then now all of a sudden he's able to like strap on a suit and do a James Bond mission into an art gallery where he gets the trust of the gallery owner to the point where the guy is willing to even talk to him about the client, and then he scans him. And of course, Kim getting involved is like a cool element of the movie for sure. Like, holy shit, there's more scanners than they know about, They do a lot in this movie without telling you too much, which is really a talent of Cronenberg when he's doing it, right? It just makes you wonder, but they answer enough questions that it makes some sense, but then the rest of it is kind of like up to your own interpretation, or sequels apparently. But I don't know. I love all the build up to this, man. I mean, I think that the movie does a really good job of putting these people into these situations. It's just with the Cam situation, they really needed like more to that training montage than just the Yogi heartbeat thing. I mean, so pretty much after that, we get him going over and meeting with what's it, Pierce? Is that his name?
Yes, Pierce,
the artist guy. And this is the only known scanner supposedly that Consec actually knows about. Obviously, Kim Oberst is a mystery to them up to this point, but they know about Pierce. They know that this guy is, an artist that was criminally insane at one point in like a state mental hospital. It turned out he was a scanner, and apparently he's unaffiliated. Like, he doesn't owe any allegiance to Consec. He doesn't owe any allegiance to Revok or any of the underground movements. He's just this random artist guy living his life, to be honest. And then Cameron shows up and just gets him killed. What do you think of this whole sequence, man? I mean, it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly. Like, this dude is just out there trying to be left alone and make his art that he sells anonymously in the city. And Cameron shows up and just absolutely lies to his face. To his credit, it's not like he really had a choice. I mean, what are you going to do? Tell him that Consec sent me here to find out whether or not you're part of one team or the other and either kill you or, get the shit. So it's all part of the whole end game of this movie, of it being very like James Bond espionage, like you're dead whether you do or you don't kind of a thing.
With telepathy.
Yes, with telepathy. So it's basically it's like Friday the 13th Part 7, only it's Carrie versus espionage. That's that's not Jason, espionage.
Corrupt corporations.
I don't know, man. What do you think of this shit up to this point?
All of it. This is usually the part of the movie where I kind of just tend to fall asleep, tend to nod off.
Yeah, I mean, they don't do a lot with some of the stuff for a while, but then they do a lot with a little as it goes on. I mean, I don't know, after this, you're kind of introduced to the idea that, maybe Consec was in on it the whole time. Maybe it's not just, Revok that's involved in this. Maybe there's another person involved that's, part of the whole deal. Do you have any of the scenes in the movie up to this point that kind of stick out to you at all, or?
I don't know. For me, I'll admit, for me, the movie kind of peaks with the head explosion. But I mean, there was a scene where they crashed that van into a record store. That was pretty good.
Yes, I do like that one, where they cross the van into the record store. Pretty much, that's right after they get, shot up towards the end, which I think is almost kind of where we're at. Basically, at this stage in the game, the jig is up. They know that somebody inside Consec is working with these people, with Revok, to make this stuff happen. So they basically turn themselves in to Consec, which is a dumb idea. And that puts them in the hands of the very people that this started with. It turns out, to our heart's delight, that, Dr. Ruth is not a bad guy. He's just a guy caught up in all of this. The only reason they're even able to escape at the end is because Dr. Ruth has, negated their fucking... It's like he just put the needles as nothing, pretty much saline solution. I don't know, man. I love the whole finale of Scanners. So I'm not one of those people that would say that there would be peaks with the head explosion. I do think it gets slower.
Yeah,
and the scanner action gets less explosive, but I do think once it hits the stages that it hits later in the film, that it picks up considerably. Have you been seeing these clips as I've been playing them, sir?
Yes.
That's all that matters. I can't at the moment. I don't know if it's something my browser's doing, but as long as you guys are seeing them, I'm happy. Yeah, man. I don't know what was kind of going on in that clip when it ended, because I was also planning on using those to keep the conversation going forward. I think we're kind of at the point pretty much where they're like escaping from the Consec building after, they realized their attempt to come in and do the right thing wasn't going to work out. So they have to leave and, actually be the scanner resistance. There's that whole sequence where there's, like those cops trying to stop them, and they take the non-violent approach and make them think that it's like their mom that they're pointing a gun at. Yeah. So for some reason they just lose their absolute shit, and
actually I think they're Consec security,
become totally useless. Yeah, they're Consec security, but I like to think one of them became a scanner cop someday. I mean, I don't know, man. That's kind of the weird thing about Scanners. There's a lot of rad shit that happens in it, and it's pretty evenly paced. The movie's just so long, I wouldn't even say Scanners is boring, as we touched on earlier. We don't fall asleep during it because it sucks. We fall asleep during it because it's just long.
Yeah.
Pretty much this sets you up for the finale of the movie where, okay, the plot up to this point is that basically they figured out that, this dude that they sent Cameron out to kill because he supposedly was trying to kill everybody that was a scanner. Turns out he was only killing scanners that didn't join him, or people that chose to remain unaffiliated.
Yeah.
But then once Cameron came from Consec and started contacting these unaffiliated people, Revok started killing them, because it's Consec trying to infiltrate his shit and take him out, which is exactly their plan the whole time. Much like they're flippant about, just admitting to making chemical and biological weapons the whole time. They're also pretty, chill about admitting that, yes, they want to eliminate the competition. That's the whole plan the whole time. So they want Cameron essentially to be powerful enough to kill Revok. so that they don't have to deal with him and they can take control of all the scanners and sell them to the highest bidder, you know. Whereas the scanner resistance that, you know, he meets, because, okay, here's the thing in scanners that confuses a lot of people. When, what's his name, Price or Pierce is dying, the artist dude,
Right.
he says a bunch of stuff to Cameron that's really hard to hear unless you have your sound dialed way up or there's like some subtitle option I'm unaware of. But he basically says, like, kill, you got to find Oberist, you got to kill Revik, you know, you got to kill him. He's gonna do this and that to the people and everything. So you basically got to find and kill Revik. That's the whole thing, and you got to stop this whole operation that he's a part of, which turns out to be Operation Right, which is a thing that's going on with the, you know, Consec, where they are essentially, I don't know if we ran this clip already, but they're essentially, you know, harvesting scanners and killing the ones that don't exist and then trying to create new ones. The whole scene where Ruth is finally melting down before he gets killed, you can definitely tell that the dude is maybe a scanner himself. I've always found that kind of ambiguous. But in the very least, he's like complacent in knowing that the first wave of scanners was an accident. It was beneficial to some people, not beneficial to others. But this new wave of scanners that they're planning is definitely them creating it, and he thinks that's wrong. Unfortunately, Keller comes in and puts a bullet in his head, which greatly affects, you know, Cameron. That was his main dude. What do you think of all this shit up to this point, Forrest?
Oh man. Let's see. It's just, yeah, it's kind of a point where where you wouldn't trust it. Where who do you trust? Who do you trust? Because everybody's either got some sort of hidden agenda or trying to force you onto their side.
Right. So who do you throw in with other than yourself and just go for it? And that's pretty much what they do, eh? You know? They go out there, they hack into the computer matrix, and they get that list of all the scanners that have been since and before. What do you think of this whole sequence, Forrest?
Oh, this was a good scene. You know, shit's blowing up. Scanner, you know, working the scanner abilities into overtime. The phone melting. That was pretty cool.
Exactly, and it pretty much puts us on a, you know, collision course for our finale, right? Like,
yep,
you know,
for final showdown between Vale and Revik,
Cameron and Revik. Were you just gonna call him Cameron, like the R&B singer?
No, just I'm just pretty much calling everybody by their last names.
So obviously we don't have footage of this, and that's my fault, guys. Pretty much I uploaded these in bulk before we did this. The final one did not come through. It might have been slightly too big. I probably would have had to go into my editor and reduce it from 1080p to 720p, and it would have went up just fine. It did not. So here we are. But you know, if you've watched the movie, you've seen the finale, you know that it's fucking glorious. I mean, what are your thoughts on the whole final battle of this forest? That's really where we're at.
I mean, it's pretty intense. We see them going. We see. I mean, we see Revik. As we see in the poster, we see Revik taking his body is just. I don't know. I wouldn't say shriveling up.
They pretty much trash each other's bodies.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like veins popping and, you know, eyes bulging and turning white.
White and Vale just gets turned into just basically he just gets disintegrated practically.
Yeah, like some spontaneous human combustion shit. But it, you know, that it eventually turns out that he takes, you know, Revik's body, right?
Yeah.
Like, which, okay. How do you feel about that? You know, how do you feel about that ending to this movie? I've always thought that the movie itself was sick, but the ending was kind of cornball, you know, where
Vale sort of gets. I mean, yeah, his body's been incinerated, but he's still alive. But
he took over the other body. I mean, it's
cool,
but it's also simultaneously cringe, I guess. Sorry, what were you saying?
I don't know. It's a happy ending of sorts.
It's an amicable ending. Like no one has to really be mad about it, I guess. I don't like it. I mean, it's one of my least favorite things about the movie is just the way it's portrayed, because it's like, isn't it his voice over
Ironside, or it's Ironside with Stephen Lack's voice dubbing it, being dubbed over it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, pointlessly cringe. I don't like it at all, but I do like the concept of it. You know,
yeah. I mean, to be fair,
he forced him out of his body and took it over. I just think they could have used his regular voice and it would have been fine. Just haven't mentioned something that's a callback to something they said to each other earlier.
Something that he had said to Kim.
Yeah, you don't need the dumb voice on it. You just need him doing that. So -1 star for that shit. But I don't know. To me, Scanners is like a 3.5 4-star movie for sure out of 5. I love it. You know?
Agreed.
I think it rules. It hits all the points that you want a movie like this to hit. It has crazy chunky gore. It has cool
psychic battles,
telepathic stuff. Yeah. If you're really wanting to run like a dope telepath marathon, you do this one, you do Firestarter, and then you do Friday the 13th Part 7 as the end.
Or Carrie.
You could throw Carrie in there if you want as well. But I think if you hit those 3 or 4 with Carrie slotted in there, you're in for a good time as far as the psychopathic, or I mean, what do you call it? Telepathic fucking homicide, you know? That's pretty much all I got to say on this movie, man. I don't know. You have anything else you want to add on Scanners? I
mean, because you were talking about like that ending. So Cronenberg actually was writing the script while he was filming it, because this movie was essentially a rush job to get tax. This movie was rushed into production for tax purposes. Like apparently, like Cronenberg apparently had ideas, but not a full script when this was made.
Okay, that makes some sense, and I mean, it also, as much as Cameron, the guy that plays him, is like iconic with his look.
Yeah,
His performance is ass. That's always been one of the
I think
weakest
it's
elements of.
but I think that's what happens when you put him up, when you put someone up against Michael, when you're putting someone like him against Michael Ironside.
You could put a lot of better people up against Michael Ironside.
I mean, really, but this guy, I mean,
there's scenes in there where he's not even acting against Michael Ironside, where he's wooden as fuck. So I don't know. I mean, he's all right. We like him because he's part of Scanners.
Right.
His performance isn't phenomenal. It's, one of the weakest parts of the movie is kind of that dude's wooden performance. I've ran into it too with people that I've shown the movie to, where they're like, the head explosion was cool, but this guy just kind of sucks.
He's kind of a wimp.
Yeah.
Or not. Or like you're saying, he's a Mary Sue.
That too, it makes it kind of difficult to get behind the character, because it's like, oh, okay, all of a sudden he's, omnipotent, and he's leading this fucking, Scanners scanning circle that he's never been a part of until this day. But when you watch it, his narration, like in the headspace, is what's leading it, and it's like, what the fuck? This guy just became a scanner.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Up until that point, he was a homeless guy eating fucking hot dog on a stick that was left behind in the fucking goddamn food court, smoking like half a butt of some L&M fucking 100 or something, The dude was definitely not as skilled as he is all of a sudden as the movie progresses. They literally put him in a James Bond suit and send him into a high-end art gallery situation where he's supposed to be convincingly one of these people that's trying to buy this art, So some questionable decisions made there, but I don't know, man. Scanners will always have a special spot in my heart.
Mine
and
too.
If you have the chance to check out these sequels, which you should be able to, unless something has changed, they're available in full on YouTube and on Tubi. But Scanners 2 and Scanners 3 are definitely worth your time. So if you guys have the chance, get out there, check these out. I'm trying to creep my fucking fingers up there in a way that you can, who cares? Scanners 2 and 3, check them out.
And Scanner Cop. Well, yeah. Guess I'll have to go down this rabbit hole.
Isn't there a Scanner Cop sequel as well?
Apparently, Scanner Cop is a spinoff.
Yeah, but I feel like there's like Scanner Cop 2. I could be wrong. Either way,
there's Scanners the Showdown, which was also known as Scanners 2, Scanner Cop 2.
Well, there you go. Once again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We don't have anything else to say about Scanners, but we definitely will have some more stuff to say about Videodrome when we get to that on the 24th. So hopefully you guys are down. You going to be here for that one on the 24th?
I should be, and I will say right now, long live the new flesh.
Indeed, and James Wood, and David Cronenberg,
and Debbie Harry.
True story. Fucking love Debbie Harry. Anyway, we'll see you guys back here next week, or week after next with Videodrome. So you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here, Forrest?
No, I got nothing going on right now. Nothing going. No, I mean, I know it's the start of the year, so it's gonna take a bit to get the ball rolling on stuff. But you can always find me on Instagram under My Name Is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups. And also I'm on Facebook for Forrest Bennett. Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure. But it's only the beginning. It's only January, so I'm sure there'll be something coming in the future,
Oh, for
or I'll
sure.
have something going on in the future.
I don't really have anything going on other than Schlockaholics stuff. So check us out. This Saturday, we'll be doing a discussion for Color Me Blood Red, the Herschel Gordon Lewis flick. That's our ongoing, goal to cover all of his shit. I don't know what Brandon or Cody are going to be submitting for the next round picks for it, but so it could be anything. We might have to tap in some guys like Forrest and other people to submit some DIY underground stuff because, Cody's got, his stuff that he's dealing with, and then Brandon's also got like his flooding. So I might need other submissions. I don't know how this is going to work exactly, but we're going to keep the show going. So I really enjoyed tonight, man. I want to thank you wholeheartedly for coming on here and discussing scanners with me. Hopefully you're going to be here for Videodrome. And the very least, hopefully you can send in like a, video message or something, sharing your thoughts on it in general. I'd love to have all you guys on here like that. Even if you can't be on, maybe you can send a video call in and, kind of like old school radio days where you would send a message in and they'd play it live on the air.
Or drop us a comment.
That too. Either or. So in closing, thank you. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it gave you the inspiration you needed to either show a friend scanners or go watch scanners again yourself. And we'll see you back here next time. Cheers.